Welcome to Postscript World on Fire, a look ahead. I'm Fred Vigeant along with Matt Wilson. Hey, Matt.
Hello, friend. How are you?
Doing well. This, for now, is our final episode that you'll hear us meandering on and on about World on Fire. Kind of a little bit of what if, a little bit of
You've described this as fan fiction. I liked that. Yeah, this is just thought exercises of sort of retconning different plot decisions or character arcs, just to spitball on how we think these different paths might have made for a different, mostly impact on season 2 probably, but we'll see.
Yeah, and no matter where you listen or watch us, please feel free to add a comment. We're curious if you agree, wholeheartedly disagree, or have your own fiction on where a character may have gone or should have gone. Certainly would like to hear it. And then, maybe if we hear from enough people, maybe we'll then have to do another episode.
No, we'd love to continue these conversations outside the podcast. Through email to postscript@w.org or through comments on our YouTube videos would be awesome. Yep, thank you.
So should we start with Douglas?
Yeah, let's start with
the easy one.
So to buttress this section, there were 4 mostly significant characters that were in season 1 that did not return for season 2.
Yeah, my favorite was Douglas for sure.
Douglas is one of them. Played by Sean Bean. So the astute of you will recognize that Sean Bean's characters not returning for season 2 is not an unusual kind of thing. I think he's even started to joke about that.
I think actually, there's an article that mentions how he has a hard time surviving into a second season of a show.
Right.
Often.
But we both really liked the character of Douglas in season 1. He was very personable. He was funny at times. I think he was doing his damnedest to be a good dad, trying to fight for Vera, the granddaughter, being kind of a foil to Robina at times, just kind of trying to do the right thing and help everybody else to do the right thing. So losing him for season 2 stank. Yeah,
and what I did look it up. He was unavailable. It wasn't just a conscious effort to just write him out of the script.
And we'll tie that largely to COVID. There was a long real world delay between production of season 1, season 2 that was certainly impacted by COVID. So
but I, in preparation of this conversation, a thought is, do you recast him? I mean, in theory, they did. I mean, but it's not the same character. Right. We got Sir James about halfway through season 2, or maybe earlier than that. But anyway, but to continue that foil role, as you had mentioned with Robina, but I couldn't. I'm trying to think of other shows where they successfully recast a character, and I think
Game of Thrones did it with a couple characters.
Did they really?
Oh, yeah. See, not like major characters, but significant characters. They recasted a few. Yeah.
All right. Well, so I was going to say I couldn't come up with one. I will admit I have not seen. I know I'm a horrible person. I've not seen all of Game of Thrones. I watched it long enough. Spoiler to not see to see Sean Bean
didn't Bewitched switch Darren at some point or something like there's.
Oh, that's true. Well, the other example I think of as a product of the '90s is Roseanne.
Kids go Google what Bewitched was, but Roseanne also a
little more contemporary than Bewitched. But that's true. He the husband, the male character in Bewitched was replaced, and then you have the oldest daughter in Roseanne. She was recast. I don't know, 2 or 3 seasons in, and that ended up being like a joke, even like within the series. Yeah. And then there's certainly other kind of jabs at it from other shows that like let's all just pretend that this is the same character.
It's me. I'm here. Get over it.
And actually, that actress, not to go down too far a rabbit hole, I think she is a main character in Scrubs, and I think there's like somewhere in there there's a joke about that. Yeah, which I thought was fun.
So,
but anyway,
so if Douglas was around for season 2, and I'm with you, this character and potentially either Nancy or Dr. Webster, I would have recast from the cheap seats. But if Douglas was around for season 2, how does that impact Lois and Vera, for example? How does it impact Jan? Or the
Tom.
whole Robina, Harry, and Tom, for that matter, who we don't see after the funeral, basically.
We don't see him. He drops in and out in the first season, because he's kind of a scoundrel. He's, out, causing trouble. Then he enlists to try to kind of straighten his life out, somewhat against Douglas's wishes, right? Because he was he was against the war, having served in World War I and managing through those demons,
right?
And And what was he? He was trying to hand out the peace times, right?
Right.
And I feel like we didn't see a lot of Tom because of that, like that central, the nucleus of Douglas being at his house, listening to the news, panicking, or were they talking about one of my kids that are out in the war zone? Since he's not there, we don't, Tom, we don't know where he ends up. And he, says that Lois is all I got. And then she goes back, to Africa in Cairo to serve at a field hospital. So I don't know. I'm not answering your question.
No, you're fine. There's no right or wrong. I think we do lose that father connection. I think Tom kind of existed to be Douglas's son, even though we did see some scenes of him in the Navy. I think that was to help us understand Douglas's panic and anxiety about all of that. I think in the introduction of Sir James, I blanked on the name for a second.
Sir James
served two. One was to sort of to backfill the lack of Douglas in the Robina storyline. Not romantically. I don't think Douglas and Robina would ever...
Despite his efforts at the end, yeah.
And then... but James came in, almost more importantly perhaps, as a foil for Cassia to continue her... to open the doors for her to get back into things, I think. So, but I think to me the biggest one is Vera and Jan missed out of not having Douglas around. So I think Douglas and Jan together was really cool to watch through season 1. We did get some insights into the mental health scenario and the hospital asylum. But Jan having that father figure who would play ball, kick the soccer ball around, play chess. I just thought that was cool. So I felt the most. Vera would never remember Douglas, of course, as she grows up. But, I think he would have loved that baby a lot.
Oh, yeah. And there lots of pure joy, I'm sure.
Yep.
So, it is unfortunate we weren't able to talk a lot about him in season 2. Right. But, I think... I think that certainly would have changed the dynamics with that new generation... or that next generation, Jan. I mean, let's group Jan and Vera together, even though she's 7 or 8 years younger. But he would have been a good figure for them to attach to.
Yeah. So let's move over to some of the other characters. So I'm going to lump these together because their plot lines did overlap or converge toward the end. So Nancy and then the Dr. Webster.
Well, they're related.
They're correct. So they're aunt and nephew. They obviously, so Nancy brought us a couple of things. One I really liked was her newscast. It was filling in the context, the history, the timing through
kind of a narration without a narrator.
Without just a dump of exposition. It was kind of mixed in. We got to see how censorship worked, her handler in Germany. So that was kind of interesting. Obviously, her connection to the Rosslers and giving us that eyes into that family, which was the only way that story would have made sense. Mm-hmm. Although we got to see Margot's family out of the blue now. So I really liked all that. We last saw her in Paris, threatening to stab a steak knife into a sensitive area of her handler because he was coming on her.
Yes.
But then talking with the doctor about coordinating efforts to try to spring Albert from the prison. And that's the last time we see either of them. They both just disappear in season 2. But Albert is back.
Albert's still in that internment camp. Right. And he's probably the steadiest character throughout these 2 seasons where he's just like, look, I've been caught. I'm just going to hang out here. Right. End of story. Really. I mean, there have been some interconnections throughout season 2, and we'll get to one of them with another character that just vanished. But Dr. Webster, I assume, flew back home. I don't know. I mean, that was what Nancy was encouraging him to do anyway. Once things maybe got a little rougher in Paris, although I thought it would be interesting to explore, well, what does it mean to be an American there? I mean, in theory, the Germans aren't after you, in theory.
Right.
But they really aren't really fond of anyone. Right. So, I don't know if that's different. So, I mean, I suppose they could have continued that, running that lane. I mean, Henriette was still at that hospital to start season 2, and then things changed as the season progressed. Mm. But I don't know. I mean, in the previous episode we were talking a little bit about where things go next, and the timestamp we're left with is if there is a season 3, going possibly into the entry of the U.S. So, I mean, I think there is a runway possibly that Dr. Webster could come back. I don't know about Nancy though. I just, I mean, I like Helen Hunt.
Right.
I just, in her role, okay, she went back to the U.S. and then where does she go next? I don't know. Maybe there's something there, but I think because we still have Albert in the mix, and they had that relationship, it would be interesting to see if that thread can be reconnected somehow.
Yeah, it would be interesting. In thinking this through, I think I get why maybe they didn't feel a strong need to bring these both back. And that centers around Albert. And I think we saw very clearly through season 2, he had no intention of trying to escape.
Right, that's true.
And so all these efforts that they might have built up from Nancy or the doctor would not have mattered. No more than Henrietta's efforts for Albert mattered. So maybe if they decided that Albert's true nature, recognizing how much more difficult life would be on the lam, he wouldn't blend in, he would stick out like a sore thumb. Maybe they just knew there's no point to having them continue that fight when we know we're not going to take that character anywhere. So the other mystery to me is Harry and Nancy had such a close relationship that she was, in essence, either the maid of honor or a witness at the wedding in Poland.
Excuse me, I forgot about that.
And then they just lose complete track of each other.
That is interesting because we've seen and sometimes have made fun of the kind of reunification of certain characters. Like, well, obviously this was very convenient for the storyline, which is obviously makes sense. We make fun of it, but obviously we want that to happen. Right. So yeah, it's established that they're close somehow. They're not related, unlike Dr. Webster, but yeah. We're not really clear on their relationship. I don't think that's ever answered.
No. It seemed more than just coworkers. Like they seem to have a connection. But
I mean, it was her encouragement that that Harry marry Cassia.
Right. Way back in episode 1, season 1. Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's no email back then. There's no easy way for them to stay in touch. Once he starts continent hopping and she's going from Warsaw back to Berlin to Paris at times. There's no easy way to just send a letter to somebody that's literally countries apart. So I get that they're not like pen pals, but it's just interesting that he never even mentions her or thinks,
maybe I can reconnect with her and she'll help me with something.
Clearly,
yeah. I totally forgot about that.
So anyway, I don't know that certainly we know their absence. I don't know that, especially around the Albert storyline, if it would have made sense to continue their presence. The Rossler storyline seemed done. There was some question of the son in that family. I don't know if that's enough to keep the Rosslers involved through a season 2.
It could be the son and the father, but yeah, I mean, I think that Marga kind of fills that role.
Right. They swapped the German storylines clearly.
Yeah.
And as difficult as that storyline has been, I think that was the right choice. It's enlightening in a difficult way.
And then, I mean, there's Vernon. Did you want to talk about Vernon?
Vernon Hunter shows up briefly toward the end of season 1, proposes to Lois, who does accept, and then he is killed in battle off screen between seasons 1 and 2. Vernon, we barely knew you.
Well, we knew, what was the guy that died in the first episode of season 2? We barely knew him either. One of David's
co-pilots. Yeah.
But anyway, Vernon, I think that would play, this is a little out of order, I'm sorry. Going back to your point about Douglas and being a father figure, that would obviously be in the mix and kind of maybe change things a little bit if he survived. Mm-hmm. Being a father figure for Vera, and or Jan, honestly. I mean, maybe something could happen there.
Right.
If he's, I mean, in theory, with Lois taking Vera out of Robina's house, that kind of separates that. There's really no reason other than Vera's father being Harry. Right. There's no reason for them to really reconnect on a regular basis if she's got the mothering thing down okay. Although, war is not over, so circumstances could change.
Right. Yeah, I think if Vernon comes back, you see a very different Lois in season 2. Maybe she doesn't hit that depth of depression. Certainly, she would still potentially lose
try to kill
father.
Herself.
Right. Give up everything. Leave my baby here. Go to Egypt to serve. So I mean, her season 2 would likely play out fairly differently. Which might then impact Robina and the issues around Vera. Vera's
just
her
like
attachment to Vera.
Season.
Yeah. the dynamic of Cassia realizing I am not a house mother. I'm not content to sit here and change diapers. I want to go back and fight. So I think that alone might have been one of the more significant character absences, because that really would have changed, I think, a lot of season 2.
Yeah, and the one that I don't think there's not that much to really talk about, but the character that was briefly introduced was Henriette's brother. Shows up in one episode, and then he takes off, and that's it.
Yeah.
We could have perhaps we could have just skipped that altogether. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, so he does. Yeah, it's a quick appearance. If nothing else, it just reinforces Albert's complete lack of hope.
Right. Yeah,
I literally have a chance right now to get out. There's a guy going with me, and he still turns it down. So I think that really cements just how dark a place Albert's in, of recognizing there's just no point. I can't escape this.
Right. I don't think that necessarily, even if her brother didn't show up, I think that doesn't really change Henriette's situation. I really liked her. I liked how she became more of a central character this season. And, but I think about, what if Dr. Webster was still there? Maybe there wouldn't be as much emphasis on her because she was kind of a accompanying character to him.
Right. Yeah, she probably filled in some of the role of resistance and helping. And it does, again, help show how the resistance occurred at different angles, different levels. It wasn't always outright fighting. It was just people trying to subvert the movement and stuff.
Right. And I mean, I guess the mechanism that Luke was there for was to really get her out of the hospital. Because up until then, she had been working at that hospital. And then from that point on, she was on the run, basically.
Right, because being involved in his escape, getting cornered in the hospital, escaping from that herself, and then, needing something to do. So we mentioned Tom briefly. As a character, I don't know if he had a big story arc. I don't know if I feel like he changed much. If there is a season 3, we mentioned this in our other bonus episode, it'd be interesting to maybe revisit his life in the Navy or what that experience is like. Potentially grieving over his father. Any relationship with Lois and Vera as an uncle, maybe that could be something interesting. But Tom just didn't feel like if he was around for more of season 2, I don't know what that would have been. So it's hard to imagine.
If he got back onto the high seas and was doing battle with some German U-boats or something, I mean, that could have been interesting.
Right. Yeah. But I think in a way, and this will be probably the last character to talk about, you mentioned David already, but just to focus in on him, if David became the character that we, in addition to Harry, get to see how war changes you, I've made it very clear, I've been frustrated by this character a little bit. He starts off as a jerk. He
kind of cocky.
Yep, feels too important to attend meetings, makes his co-pilots or his wingmen make up excuses for him, hangs out with girls and when he should be at work. Gets shot out of the sky and has basically a near-death experience. And no doubt those kind of things will change people. It was not a compelling story arc. It was just a traditional jerk learns some humility and appreciates his fellow humans and has a new sense of appreciation for life, which is fine. It's not a terrible story. Yeah. But maybe that's a slide in for what Tom might have experienced in the Navy. A young man with not a lot of hope, not a lot of maybe... he had the wrong kind of self-confidence. He had, bravado, but did not see himself as a hero by any means, that kind of thing. But maybe we were replaced with that potential storyline through Tom's growth with this new character, David.
That's true, because otherwise it would have been similar to the first season for Tom, and maybe that wouldn't have been as interesting.
Right. What I would have loved to see, though, is if Tom and Dredgers could have been reunited, because the last we saw those two together... Tom pulled a gun on him as he was trying to climb on top of the boat.
I remember you.
At Dunkirk. Talk about reconnections and circular relationships, and those two stumbling upon each other at Vera's house, Robina's house one day would have been...
Oh, that would have been fun.
Would have been fascinating if they even remembered each other.
Well, there's that. Yeah. I mean, there's so many faces.
Still trying to figure out how Gregor's got a job as a airplane mechanic or a munitions person at that Air Force base, and... He seemed very close friends with David, which is fine. But so
there was a surprising ad at the end of the season. So what if?
What if?
Well, we'd like to hear from you as well.
That's it. That's it for us. This is the end of our planned content for through the end of season 2 of World on Fire. If there's a season 3, we'll probably be back because this was fun. We hope you had fun too. Send us your parting thoughts. Email postscript@wf.org. Find us on all the WTF socials. YouTube videos, you can leave comments. And if you want to hunt us down in your favorite podcast engine, leave a review. That'd be awesome. Any parting thoughts, my friend?
I hope there's a season 3.
Yeah, same here. And we hope to see you then.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.